This is every Minecraft hack that feels like cheating. And hey, according to YouTube, no one's ever subscribed to the channel with the back of their finger. So if you're up to the challenge, whack the back of your index finger on that sub button below. It's free and it helps out a ton. On the surface, sand doesn't seem that important. I mean, it's irritating, it's coarse, and it gets everywhere. But ask anyone in the technical community, then sand gets pretty important. And most importantly, it's not renewable. And for how much sand we can start to need for big projects, and more importantly, other gravity blocks like concrete powder, then that's why we start to see duplication machines like this one, where we literally break the frames around the end portal just to get more of the stuff. But like most duplication in Minecraft, since there's no other way to farm this, that's where a lot of players start to see this as a gray area. And it seems like Mojang agrees, considering they haven't patched it out. And speaking of duplicators that Mojang's okay with, duplicating TNT in Minecraft is a glitch. There's no two ways to look at it. But considering the fact that there's no actual way to move TNT on top of flying machines, considering that in Java you can't move a dispenser, it's a container block, that's actually why Mojang's considered to leave this in for so long. Are they happy about it? Not really, but for some reason it's just not in the cards to get movable tile entities in Java. And while I can't say that I understand that one, I can't understand why some people would feel like this is cheating, because you're using one block of TNT that you crafted to get enough to blow up the entire world. That doesn't seem fair, but it is necessary in a lot of farms. With the help of the nether portal and a shield, we're able to give ourselves complete invincibility, at least as long as you don't eat food. Since the way that this works is that if you hold up your shield and then walk through the nether portal, then when you come into the next dimension, even though visually we're not holding up our shield anymore, the game still treats it like we are. And so, as long as we don't use any other things with the interact button, we're able to sprint and completely block all attacks that are coming towards us. Which could be helpful if you're not ready to tackle the nether just yet. For the price of an iron ingot and 5 planks, it gets a lot less scary to deal with those piglins. It's possible to get all of the illegal items that you'd only ever see in creative admin commands entirely in your survival world. The way we do this is actually through an April Fool's update. Since back in the one block at a time snapshot that Mojang did for April Fools, the Enderman could spawn holding illegal items. And while most of us would have just tried out that snapshot in a world that wasn't important, you are able to update that world like any other snapshot, meaning that you can then have this Enderman that's holding a structure block. Kill it, get it to drop its item, and now you've got something that you shouldn't even be able to have in the base game. And honestly, it's probably something that most players who are visiting your world wouldn't even recognize. That's how rare it is. But it also means you need to play this terrible snapshot, so I guess you did have to work for it in the end. Cauldrons are weird, and they're so weird in fact that they're actually able to break the logic of the game. See, if you were to take a cauldron and put it underwater, then you can fill it up with a lava bucket, and visually you'll have lava underwater. Literally at the bottom of the ocean. But that's not the strangest part, since if you were to actually step inside of the lava, then sure enough, even though the rest of us is encased in water, we're still able to burn to death in the bottom of that cauldron. And at that point, that's just embarrassing. It's kind of like stubbing your toe on a pillow. Probably technically possible, but everyone's gonna laugh at you if it happens. With the help of this machine, I'll never run out of items in my offhand. And the reason for this has something to do with a concept called item shadowing, which, to grossly oversimplify, because I don't even frankly understand it all, the way that this works is that we're using some amount of update suppression with all these rails to then trick the game to think that this item slot in this chest corresponds with the item slot that we're holding. And just like this, we'll never run out of rockets when we're exploring our world. At least that's how Doc M used it on Hermitcraft, and I feel like that's a pretty practical application. But considering that update suppression's been patched out in the past, I think it's pretty obvious that Mojang's stance on this is that it's cheating, so more of a use it before you lose it kind of thing. Enchanting in Minecraft is not random, though all the steps that you have to do to manipulate it are gonna feel pretty random. See, it's possible to use third-party software like we can see here to then figure out the exact enchantment seed of your world. Just like your world has a seed to generate off of, it also has a seed for how your enchantments are gonna load. And once we crack that code, we can set it up where if you just throw out a couple of blocks like this, you get the exact enchantments that you want when using the enchanting table. And no matter how cool this is, I am gonna go out on a limb and say that if you're using third-party software to crack your game, that's probably not gonna be allowed on most servers. But it's completely possible, and it's not patched out, so take that as the hall pass, if you will. As you can see, I'm not in this boat, but even though that's easy to see, that's also not true, at least according to the server. See, when you stand on top of a boat like this and then right-click it really fast, then it's possible to desync from the actual server and have it think that you're still inside of the boat while we're still able to walk around on our client. Why would you do this? Well, the interesting thing is that everything that we do while we're outside of the boat on our end is still going to be processed even though we're inside of the boat on the server. So anything that we do while we're technically outside of the boat is eventually going to update to the server, which means we build up a tall tower, jump off of it, take no fall damage, and then when we need to, hit shift and teleport right back back to the boat like we were supposed to be. Which is definitely weird, but it's also a really cool magic trick. So impress your friends if you can with this one. While playing version 1.8.9, if you were to look at an anvil sideways like this, then because of a glitch, that actually changes all other anvils in the world's collision boxes. So if we look at this sideways anvil and then walk backwards into a wall of anvils, we'll phase through as if there was no collision box whatsoever. And while I love how goofy this trick is to pull off, I also like imagining how goofy it must have been to discover this. And I would have loved to imagine how surprised someone was when they built a weird wall of anvils, only for it to get even weirder. Here's how to put more than 64 items into a stack. Or really, I should say 64 glass bottles. Since, as Razeworks points out, the way that this happens is by using a brewing stand like this. And then, when you put 64 glass bottles in each of the 3 slots of the brewing stand, if you click them in order 1, 2, 3, you'll not just be holding 64 glass bottles in your hand, but rather, the second stack will bring you up to 127, and the third stack will bring you up to 190. But as cool as this is, it's also not anything permanent. Since if you were to try to put 190 glass bottles into one of the slots in your inventory from here, it'll just deposit 64 glass bottles at a time. But you could throw it outside of the UI menu, and it'll drop 190 on the floor, for whatever that's worth. Maybe you just want to take all the bottles of milk off the wall. I don't know. As Weefies demonstrates in this video, if you were to place blocks at the exact right height while you're falling, then you can actually trick the game into not registering any fall damage when you land. Now, the reason that this happens is that the game thinks that we're stepping onto the blocks instead of just falling onto them. And you wouldn't take fall damage if you were just stepping onto any regular block down here in the overworld, so nothing happens. But before you go get excited to try and learn this skill, I will warn, it doesn't work in newer versions. I have a feeling if you tried it, it'd be a rude awakening even if you could get the timing down. By placing a piston underneath the end portal in a system like this, then when you push yourself with the piston, that'll get the game to teleport you to the end, but not to where we normally spawn on the obsidian platform. Rather, it just teleports you to the exact same coordinates to the overworld stronghold, which usually means that you can completely skip the Ender Dragon fight if you do this. Although the Ender Dragon might not be the only thing that you're missing out on, since when you do this, you'll usually just spawn above the void. So make sure that you have some kind of Ender Pearl or slow falling potion to help yourself out here. Otherwise, you'll have successfully built a machine just to lose your stuff in the end. What fun that is. Normally, a pig spawner is something that we only ever see with creative mode commands and spawn eggs. But on some seeds, it's possible to generate this quintuple pig spawner setup. And there's no cheats involved, but there definitely is a glitch. Since what happens here is that some other block overrides the NBT data of the spawner, and so it just defaults to the pig one. And then if you were to place down some well-lit grass blocks next to it, it actually does work, and you have a pretty solid pig farm, just nothing compared to a hoglin farm. With the help of a boat and a flowing water source placed like this, we're able to drop ourselves completely through a sheet of bedrock. All we gotta do is place our boat right at the edge of the flowing water like so, and then jump in right before it exits frame. And honestly, this just feels so funny to me, because where it would be most useful is if you got trapped on top of the nether roof, but we can't place water over there, so you're really just stuck to using this in the overworld where it takes you to a short death. If you were to get yourself crouching down underneath a trapdoor like this, with a piston and a bunch of slabs around you, then when we flip the lever, that'll push the slab inside of our collision box, and we'll be able to see right down into all the caves below us. And then if you have something like Optifine Zoom or a spyglass to help you find the finer details, this could help you to keep track of everything that's beneath you in your world, whether that's your friend's secret base, or a dark patch that's given the hostile mobs a hiding place. Bedrock Edition's broken. I mean, that's not news to anyone who's ever played it, and we've definitely showcased that on this channel, but I think this particular glitch using bone meal can very easily show how some of the oversights are. Now, if you start off in a plains biome and bone meal the ground, you get grass and flowers. That much is expected. But then, when you bone meal some of that grass into tall grass, it doesn't always take the bone meal out of your inventory. And then, with a pair of shears, we can take that new tall grass and turn it into more bone meal in a composter, essentially giving us infinite bone meal, if you also have infinite time to get it. And if you were playing on something like Skyblock, this could be particularly useful. Getting on top of the nether roof is a useful tool in Minecraft, at least for those of us on Java. On Bedrock, you can't place anything, but on Java, we can build entire farms up here on the roof. So the question then is, how do we get up there? And really, all it's gonna take is finding yourself a little hole in the bedrock roof like this, where you can get up as high as possible, to a Y level of 124. And then by placing down ladders and having yourself an ender pearl, we can squeeze our way up right to the top, and then be able to throw our ender pearl right through the solid bedrock and land on top of the roof. Just make sure that you also brought some form of obsidian to help you out there. Like we mentioned, that bow trick from before, not gonna be your saving grace this time. But where a bow can be more useful is here in the overworld. Since if you go into third person and then angle your camera just right, then you'll notice that at the right angle, it's actually possible to see right through the water and everything will be completely clear. No filters, no darkness, just a clean shot of what you're looking for. And so if you're trying to scope out ocean ruins to get yourself a sniffer egg, or maybe a pirate ship to find yourself some buried treasure, this is a trick worth using. I mean, you're already in the boat anyways. It seems pretty good. Now in this video, we've already shown off more than a few ways to break the mechanics of Bedrock by phasing through it both up and down. But what if you just want to get rid of Bedrock entirely? And that's where a design like this one can come in handy. Now, as Salmon Up lays out in this video, all we have to do is place 2 obsidian diagonally like so, and then with a piston and 2 blocks